our friends, milestones, tons of milestones that we were unable to engage in over this past year. I think of graduations. There was one client I was working with. She was a senior in college. I mean, they work so hard all of these years, right? In high school too, they work all of these years in order to get to that graduation ceremony, and it was ripped out from under them. And she felt bad about grieving it because she's like, this is what she said. It's such a stupid loss compared to all these other losses that people are experiencing when when people are dying, and having to work with her in finding space for both of those things, to be able to say there's a lot of death and losses that are occurring with everybody else, and I recognize that, and I'm allowed to grieve the fact that I'm not going to have a graduation ceremony. So trying to kind of normalize that process. But milestones have been huge during this past year and a half. Separation from one's primary caregiver. So for example, children. Now anger, that's interesting. So anger isn't a defense mechanism, right? It's more of an emotion. But here, let me just put this out here. Again, as long as you're picking it up, that's all I really care about. But what we have are, some may feel like they fall into multiple categories, and that's true. We just call it having more privilege in one category or another, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. I'm just, helping you guys start to conceptualize and organize the responses. So minimizing, bargaining is, yeah, sure, we can throw that in there. Denial, or shock, yes. Withdrawal would be probably more of an interpersonal or behavioral response. Isolation, again, behavioral or interpersonal response. We've got using a sense of humor. Sometimes people see it as inappropriate. I see it as more of a defense mechanism. That's a natural defense mechanism. Repression, projected, all of that. Doing this kind of work than ever before. This is the time. This is the time to do that. And then the relationship dynamics. Was it a dependent relationship in an unstable or cold family? The grief of the survivors. If you are a child and your parent, and you lost a sibling, and your parent is not faring well, which of course I can only imagine you would not, the way that that parent is grieving could lead that child to feel like the forgotten child. It's actually a term that they use, the forgotten child. And if that's the case, how to rectify that, how to make sure that that child knows that there is somebody there for him or her and holding him or her in this process while the parent looks to be falling apart. I personally think that when my mom fell apart after the loss of Damien, that I lost my mom at the same time for that, as she was grieving. She wasn't accessible to me. So there was a whole other implication, a whole other secondary loss. And it is parallel to that imaginal revisiting I was telling you about in complicated grief therapy. It's a narrative process in which there are three narratives occurring at the same time. There's the external narrative of what happened around me, the internal narrative of what's happening in you right now, and the reflexive narrative of what are you making of what's going on? What sense are you making of what's going on here? The goal is to weave together to create a stronger through line. This specifically is based on 3 steps, making sure first, before you even start, that there's bracing, modulation, emotional modulation, self-regulation, coping skills, being able to self-soothe, and making sure that they have the support they need before you even go into this intervention. Go slow. You do not need to push past this. It's not something you